All right.
You ready?
I literally was about to grab my glasses that aren't there. So I got in the habit of wearing glasses, and now I'll do stuff like this. I try to push them up, and they're not there because I get so used to it. All right, here we go. Shall we?
We shall.
Good evening. That was too loud. Okay.
Ask the sound man to turn you down. How's that? Every sound man.
Just pretend to wiggle the knobs.
all you gotta do is
that
just
changes
act like you're
people's
doing
perception.
something.
They really think it cuts it. That does sound better. You know?
Just let me know when. You're exaggerating it, Major.
That's no, it's placebo.
Oh, okay.
Placebo.
You do the old.
It works. It works great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Talkback Corner. This is episode 9, and tonight we're actually going to address a question that was sent in by one of our listeners. Rube the Soundman 02 $. This one is for you. So, question for this podcast. From a musician's perspective, what do you expect out of a sound man? Like, for instance, I know I operate the soundboard at our church, and I can control everything on the platform. I can change volumes, panning. I can even mute stuff where it's not heard at all. So, what does a musician expect from the sound guy coming into a Sunday or Wednesday service? Does the musician want to be set at a certain volume? Do they expect everything to be ready for them? Do they just want to be able to come in and be ready to play? So, with that, that's the topic we're going to address tonight. So, stick with us. You're listening to Talkback Corner, a podcast by church musicians for church musicians, giving you an inside look into our story and our passion for music. Our goal is to inspire musicians not to just play an instrument, but worship with that instrument and use their talents to further the kingdom of God.
Okay. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We are talking about a very touchy subject in the music world today. Yeah, or tonight.
No pun intended.
Very,
That's why we gave him the board.
Oh.
very high tension situations result
okay.
out of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
And
I'm following you now.
Oh,
following
snap.
you
There's a big old spider over here. Hold on a second, y'all.
one
Kill it.
moment, breaking news.
Kill it.
Has he got
Or
that?
just leave it, and
He
then
gone.
my wife will panic.
Does he have
and-
thousands
there
of
he is.
babies? Got him.
Oh.
Maybe we should cut the pressure washing business and do exterminator.
Right on the rug?
Oh, could they see me?
Probably.
So I wasn't going to do it on the rug, but I was like, this is my only shot.
That thing is huge. We should show it on camera, but I don't think we can. Everybody stand up, look at the spider. And yes, we're keeping this.
Oh wow!
We're keeping this.
Oh, I
in the
thought you were talking about the
podcast.
spider. He's like the podcast spider.
Put him in one of those little glass things.
We're gonna put him right there. We're gonna put him right there at the front of the table.
With a glass cup.
He's our
over on-
mascot.
Start a bow collection.
So, to kick it off, you mentioned this is a sticky subject, and I didn't know what you meant at first, but I think you kind of kicked off that first part of this podcast, which is the relationship between musicians, singers, and the sound person.
It's tense.
It can be tense and sticky at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess why we're relevant to talk about this, all of us are musicians. I would say all of us are musicians first. I'm definitely, I don't know, I would consider myself as much an audio guy as much as I am a musician.
You're a hybrid.
I'm a
Hybrid.
You're an EV. A hybrid.
I am the relationship between the two.
You're gas and electric. So I think a lot of the tension comes from lack of understanding on both sides.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have either someone who started in music, moved to sound, and they've stayed in sound. I don't want to say this and it be taken wrong, but it doesn't require a lot of training to run a soundboard at a local assembly most of the time. Depending on the setup,
Okay.
it doesn't require hours of practicing at home.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And you can fix whatever you need to. If you understand it, you can fix it with what you hear.
Yeah.
Okay. So they tried an instrument. Don't think that's for me, but I want to be involved. So they start a soundboard.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, the soundboard thinks, well, this guy just don't know what he's talking about. It sounds good where I'm sitting. So the sound guy potentially has the power to make or break a song,
Agreed.
a service, a setting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did a class at Camp One this past week on it, and
Shameless plug.
I pointed out, asked, I knew the guy on the front row played drums. I said, you're a drummer, you're playing drums. How many things are you responsible for if you're on the platform playing drums? One.
Well,
If
depending on if it's a 5-piece kit and how many cymbals you got.
you're a singer, how many things are you responsible for? One. The sound person's responsible for all of that. And
Monitors.
if one thing's off, it's not the musician's fault. It's the sound guy's fault
Yeah.
from people's perception.
So, sorry.
You got to have thick skin to be a sound guy.
Yeah. So,
Or guy or girl, sound person.
Or girl. Yeah.
in a past life, I was voluntold as a sound person, and I hated it. I could not stand it, legit. And but we didn't have
and
any.
here I am
anybody.
loving it.
Now it might be a little bit better situation. Maybe. We had some bad situations. But anyhow, it's one of those things where nobody knows you exist if you do your job well. But
And that's how you want it.
everybody knows you if you don't do your job well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the clash comes from like two things. I saw a guy that was teaching a sound class one time, and he said, I can sit here at this board and I can teach you everything I know in an 8-hour session max, and you will be proficient on this board right here. He said, what I can't teach you is how to hear everything. He said that of course comes with time and like you picking it up. So I think like the clash could sometimes come from, we know what needs to be done in our ears, like not just in ears, but like if we're sitting there in the mix, like sometimes you go to churches and you're like, that person needs to be turned up, or this is overpowering, underbearing, whatever. And so like we have the ear as musicians that some sound people that do a very good technical job but might not have the ear. They're not hearing what we're hearing, but we don't have as much technical. I know you're on both sides of the fence, but we don't have as much technical knowledge to do the things that they technically do, but they also don't have as much ear talent as a trained musician or somebody that plays often does. So I think that's the clash, is where we want them to do, but we can't explain, and they don't know what we're talking about, but it looks like it's okay,
I don't think that could have been put better. I like that.
And so I've noticed you have some that look at things, and like he just said, it looks right.
Yeah.
It looks like it's supposed to look.
Yeah.
But actually hearing it is a different story. It's not to its fullest capability. It's not what it could be, And that comes with knowing your equipment ownership, taking that time to learn your equipment, to learn.
Episode 6.
I believe it's episode 6,
Y'all
the
should go
power
listen
of
to that one.
ownership. But it can cause tension. It can ruin an atmosphere real quick. You got to have thick skin. You also have to be confident. So if you lack confidence in your equipment and knowing your equipment, every person that comes to you that will have a problem is going to have the right to argue with you because you're not confident in what you know
Yeah.
the equipment's capable of and what you know. You can only do so much.
Right.
And at some places, like at our church, you have double the responsibility because you have stage volume and house volume. Two totally different things. Learning, you can't turn the stage up too much because the mics will squeal. Can't turn the house up too much because it'll blow everybody out of
People
the...
will die.
Yeah. So...
Or the old people will.
And like we said at the beginning, you're the expert on sound. I would like to learn it, but I'm not. I would be going strictly by ear when
Okay.
I would set up.
I like to think I'm an expert on sound. I enjoy it, but I wouldn't call myself an expert.
So if I'm in a sound booth,
You're the resident expert.
Of the four of us.
so like if I ran sound at our church right now, I feel like I would do a decent job because you've set everything that needs to be set, like all gain and effects and all the technicals that you've already spent time on is done. All I'd have to do is go in and volume, and I've, as all of us do, have an ear to know, okay, that music or that instrument's too loud or too quiet, or that singer is too loud or too quiet, and be able to balance everything. So I'd be able to do that basic thing of volume up and down. But as far as the EQs and all that and panning something, wherever it needs to go, that's where I'd get lost and it'd be done. But now a good sound person can always go up and do, not that we're just brilliant musicians, but a good sound person can always do. So it's that balance.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of segues into if we got to define what's the goal of each, right? Because this is the relationship between the two. Your musician on stage is, I guess you would say, contributing to create that atmosphere of worship. Your sound person isn't so much contributing as it is controlling it,
Developing.
Okay.
Manipulating.
Yeah, I like that. Manipulating.
Manipulate.
It's like,
At times, yes.
and I like to describe it as, you said it earlier, the sound person, if they're doing their job well, nobody knows they exist.
Yeah.
I think of my job as a sound technician to provide a worship environment that has zero distractions.
Yeah.
If it sounds great, nothing's overpowering, nothing's squealing, you don't know I exist. That's my goal, is to just simply be free of distractions. Whereas musicians, doesn't really apply. I mean, it does, but if that makes sense.
Well, you were speaking on distractions, just like messing up playing a song, having you mess up on a lyric, you mess up on a drum roll, you mess up on a guitar solo. If sound is not what it should be, let's say service starts or you're making a transition in service from one song to the offering, then to another song, and you mute all the mics during offering
And then forget to unmute.
and then forget to unmute them, and people are standing up there.
Guilty.
That's a distraction. Everybody in that church
Now knows something happened.
something's going on. And then what do they all do?
Or
They look at the sound guy.
That's what I was about to say also is, and even if there's not something bad, but and so this is no offense to any listeners or anything, but some people just aren't trained in other areas. So some people might have, so Matt will know this. There's times when people can say, that's too loud, and how's that? Oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much. And you never touched the thing. Or that is way too quiet. You're like, okay. Is that better? Oh, thank you so much.
It's the classic move.
So funny story. This actually happened setting up at Camp 1. I was EQing the mics, and the person sitting beside me, well, there was a person that was saying it needs a little bit more of this, and then there was somebody sitting beside me. I literally turned the EQ off and back on again. That's all I did. And the person sitting beside me goes, and they said, "Oh, that sounds perfect." And we look at each other like,
yeah. But so like you have somebody that's untrained and they don't know, they think they hear something in the sound system, but maybe they didn't. And then they're looking back. And then so like maybe they're middle row, and so everybody that's behind them's now looking back, and then you got the whole church.
Looking back.
Just like as much as we hate to admit it, if there's some commotion that happens somewhere in the church, everybody's gonna.
They're gonna pick it up, say what's going on.
At least get a quick glance. So it can become a pretty big distraction.
So the overall goal of the sound man and the musician is to provide a seamless, as good as possible experience for music, sound,
Yeah.
all of it.
100%.
For there not to be any, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
But for there not to be missing pieces.
Yeah.
That would cause a distraction. So eliminate distraction. Because in this day and age, we have so much technology, it increases risk of distraction. That's why we have a sound guy. Because we all know that a soundboard has a mind of its own. And you can turn it off one night, turn it on the next day. Everything's exactly the same way it was, and it does not sound the same.
It's true. Devil's in the sound booth.
Devil's in the sound booth.
The speakers, or is it our ears?
Could be our ears.
Could be our ears.
Sound is subjective.
I know at the end of a service, my ears are a lot different than they are the next morning when I wake up.
That's because
I
you
can't hear
deafen yourself
anything at the end of the
in
service.
your in-ears, and you're experiencing auditory fatigue.
Start seeing stuff.
So I don't like the term worship experience,
Right.
like a lot of churches use. I don't like that term, but in essence, we're trying to create an atmosphere of worship that limits all distractions, right? Because it does pull people out of that mindset, that intent when stuff happens. Like it or not, it does. So our job should be to eliminate as much of that as possible.
Yeah. It's like going to we talk about this a lot in like dinners and stuff. It's like going to a place where they cook the food, they clean up, and they do all the service. They set up the tables and chairs, praise the Lord. And you walk in, you may pay for it, but you walk in, you eat, and you fellowship, and you leave. And we've talked about it in church functions. It's so much better for everybody that way because you get a night where it's just stress-free. You're not worried about anything. You're not worried about
for the kids.
True. Well, for people like Caleb, but you're not concerned about all the little things. But when you have a function, say at the church, you got a group that's labored in setting up. You got a group that's labored in cooking, a group that's labored in serving. And so when you got to think about all the little things, then, it takes your mind off what
the whole purpose of being there.
Yeah. You don't fully actually get
it turns into a chore rather
Yeah.
than something to enjoy. So we'll go this direction with it, and then we'll flip it, and you can speak to the other side.
Okay.
So
I'm cool with that.
what does a musician expect from the sound guy or gal?
Yeah. To get into the actual question.
Yeah.
Okay.
To get into it. So what does
Well, tell you what, let me ask you, y'all, as musicians.
you guys,
So
you guys
you walk in, should we use your home church or church you're not normally going to?
let's do home church.
Home church. You walk into home church Sunday morning, ready for practice. What do you expect from the sound person that should be there at practice? What do you expect from the sound system? What's y'all's expectations on that to actually get into the question?
I would say
You just want yourself unmuted.
yes. I have that problem all the time because like I want to get in there and
That happens to you more than anybody else.
I like to warm up my fingers, and it just helps to be able to hear yourself. I mean, you can play just off the strings
Do
with
we
no
really?
sound, but
Yeah.
But then you can't. But then you can't test your patch. And
Yeah,
make sure it's exactly what
because
you want.
like you said, my Helix is the same way. I don't know what it is, but there's sometimes I turn it on and that thing sounds beautiful, and there's other times I turn it on and it needs some work.
Yeah.
So, quick question before I go into what I expect. How long does it take to turn the sound system on and have it ready for practice?
That's where I was going.
So hours.
Good
grief. No.
Days?
Our sound system, the way it's set up, I mean, seconds.
Yeah.
To actually fire it up, you flip a switch and make sure the house speakers are on.
Mm-hmm.
I've been at other churches where it was a process. Took 15 minutes to power everything on because every individual thing required
had
powering
its own
on.
switch, and you had to go.
Right.
Well, at those venues, do they have multiple, or is it just one guy?
Most churches are only working with one person.
Regardless, at max, 15 minutes.
Yeah, tops.
So-
that would be that extreme end.
So when we get there, not necessarily drums, but guitar players, they hook their guitar up, or bass players hook the bass up. They get everything turned on, get the volume, set it close enough on their instrument. Piano player, you bring in a computer and get all that hooked up and set up.
MIDI set up.
Drums, you pretty much walk
Thank
in
you,
there and
Caleb.
sit down and go.
Drummers.
So my expectation of a sound guy or gal would be have the sound system on by practice time.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be anybody else's responsibility if you are the sound guy. Because here's what can happen. Anybody can walk in there and turn it on, and they may have turned it on wrong. Then you walk in at practice time or 10, 15, 2 hours late, and something don't sound right. Well, all
Did
it
you forget your
was,
crayons?
all it was,
I'm sorry.
all it was just one or two things that needed to be done.
Yeah.
That you knew how to do that. This person was there for practice. Nothing was on. They had to just run up there and get sound pumping through the system.
Yeah.
So you may not have to touch anything after you turn on the sound system, but be there with the sound on whenever the musicians and singers arrive. To me, that's like, what is it? That's the least. That's the
Bare minimum.
that's reasonable service. That's like
Reasonable service.
bare minimum.
Yeah.
So that's what I would expect out of a sound guy as far as being there, have everything on. At our church, it takes just a minute maybe to run around, turn everything on, have it ready. Then during practice, and the Behringer in-ears that we have has really mitigated a lot of this, but I know a lot of places don't have in-ears. So listening to what people are saying. So before we had in-ears, I relied on stage volume and amps for everything I could hear.
Can we just take a second and appreciate in-ears?
Absolutely.
I don't know that I could. It
I
would take
know.
me a while to adjust
know.
back. But
Life is better now.
there will be times where I'd be like, I need more singers. I'm playing the same set of drums just as hard as I was last time, and I cannot hear the singers. Sound systems have a mind of their own. They change for some reason because it's technology. It changes from time to time, from power on to power off, power back on. So there's things that change that have to be adjusted.
Well,
Always come prepared to adjust that. Know how to adjust what you need to adjust. Let's say that the house volume is great, but you need to get to the stage volume to adjust it. Know how to get to the stage volume without adjusting stage and house. Or I don't know if it's set up at our church to where you have a separate channel for the Behringer or the in-ear system. Is it a separate channel
It's
entirely?
its own thing.
We don't really have to do a whole lot there because we control all that to our preference. But just listen. Like I said, a lot of times you can't fix everything, but listen to what people are saying and don't just brush it off like, well, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm the sound guy.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about. Everybody likes to hear themselves along with everybody else to be able to play properly.
Yeah.
So even if it's at the very beginning of practice, the first song, or have the praise team sing a chorus, Everybody good? Can y'all hear yourself? Take care of all that then.
Yeah.
And then I know solos, or you have people doing solos, they need to go up and down depending on song. You can do all that as you go. But just be a servant, not a slave, but be a servant to the music department.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure they're good, because that's their time. Practice is your time and their time to get it set straight. You can always change the house and it not affect the stage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
It's if you got them fixed, you can worry about everything else and know they're good to go. So don't start working on the house in the middle of practice when the stage isn't even where they need it to be.
Right.
And you have people that sing quieter than other people. The person that didn't hardly sing into the mic and was real soft spoken may be holding the same mic that the loud, boisterous, strong voice is holding that next service. That, not having a set praise team, that's a complication that you're going to have every time, unless everybody has their own personal mic. So that is my expectations. Like I said, now it's a lot different from since we've got in-ears, but just through the years, that's been my, just I'm not downgrading you. I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing. This is just something that if you could fix this, it would help me. So
This is an open atmosphere. Nobody's taking offense.
no, man, I could see you're wanting to slap me right.
Caleb, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I got 2 points.
So anyways, what I was saying,
he kind of hit on one of them, but like, and my 2 points kind of go together. So I'll go with the second one first. I feel like, we don't believe in once saved, always saved. I feel like this also applies in the sound. Once set, always set. That's not a thing.
I didn't know you knew
I didn't know where you were going with that.
That was really cool. Hey, you're the metaphor guy. That was cool.
Go on, preach.
Once it's set, it's not always set.
Yeah.
Like
Jesus sets.
it can be set. You can be saved, but it's not
Fail proof.
It takes somebody like y'all hit on, and from what I've gathered, it almost seems like in some instances you need two people with sound, which I've seen you helping out whoever's running sound several times.
Yeah.
So like somebody who may be good at the technical side of it, and somebody who has a really good ear.
Yeah.
Maybe a musician who's not playing that night that says, "Okay, we need a little more piano, a little less drums, whatever the case may be," and then somebody who knows how to run the board. Okay, I can do that, because like I'm kind of like Jesse outside of the basics of running the sound. Like I can mute the media and that kind of thing, and I can turn it on and I can unmute instruments and turn them up or down a little bit. But yeah, that's about it. And my second point I was going to make is, and you touched on it a little bit, the singers and musicians both. You have to think about, okay, who's singing tonight, who's playing tonight. Like, I know for our church we have we use Church Track. It gets sent out who's singing, who's playing. So you can kind of be thinking about that before you even get to the church. Mm-hmm. If it's us four playing, you may have to bring the music down a little bit because we all play very loud.
A little bit.
And
turn them acoustic drums.
Mute them.
But then, then you got maybe other musicians, like newer musicians or whatever, who aren't as confident. Mm-hmm. They're going to have their stuff turned down naturally. Same thing with singers. Singers who are more shy are going to have the mic like this right here instead of where it's supposed to be. You have to think about that kind of stuff. And like for our church is not small, but it's not huge either. Like we know they've all had enough rotation.
Yeah, we know.
You know who's going to be the quieter singer, who's going to be the one you need to have to turn their mic down or whatever every time. Be thinking about that before you get there, so that when you get there, you can be like, okay, I already know what I'm going to have to do for the most part, and that'll help. Just like us playing, we look over the songs or practice them, before we get there, so that we know what we're going to have to do when we get there. So it's almost like practice, I guess, for the sound man.
Yeah.
Or sound
No, that's
woman.
fair.
Well, and on that note, should it be taken? This is an honest question because I don't know this answer, but should it be taken as serious as you're playing an instrument that night, or you're preaching a message that night? And should it be taken that serious as I need to be there and I need to have everything ready?
I think you already
Yes.
know my answer on this.
100%.
Because if you can't be faithful in that, how can you be faithful behind the pulpit?
True.
Be faithful in the
I'm
small
saying,
things.
Go on, preach.
Not that you're called to preach, but I'm saying,
But how can you be faithful
you're right.
in worship, in your marriage? I mean, if you can't be faithful in small things,
True. So,
I promise we'll get to pick on the musicians here in a minute. too.
yeah, Matt's
For now, we're
fixing to
picking on
rail
the
us.
sound techs.
so right before we put the sound man on the floor and let him tell him that's what we're doing wrong, I guess I'll give mine real fast.
You got to get in a few jabs.
Yeah. Mine, I think, would combine our pain points and this question. So I know, and this first one goes into what the two of you have said. So like media, they come for the projection of the words. They come to practice, and we have had some conversations in the past few years where maybe the singers don't need words at practice because we don't want them singers to be just glued to.
They should know the words before
They
they
should
get
know
there.
the words. Yes, just like it's a little off-putting sometimes if we stare too much at material in front of us if we have it.
Yeah.
But one thing, the reason why there's always still usually try to be a media person at practice is because that media person needs to understand what parts of the song are what.
Yep.
When
And how it flows.
when they do that or bridge or what, they need to know what that is and usually what they're going to next. So if they need to know that there's a pre-chorus and where that pre-chorus is, they need to know sometimes we start first verse and then we go straight into the second verse instead of doing a chorus. They need to know that type of stuff.
Sometimes we go from a bridge back into a pre-chorus,
Yeah.
into the chorus.
Into the chorus.
Sometimes we just go from the bridge to the chorus.
Straight to the chorus.
And sometimes we don't even get the song, so we have to scrap it and do something else. And the media person don't know that because they weren't in practice.
And I can say from being a
No, this is pick on sound person, not
Yeah.
media person.
from being a substitute media person, like, oh no, so and so forgot they're on media, and it's like, okay, I guess I'll get over there and I'll do it. And I mess up because I'm not thinking about where they're about to go or whatever, or I just get distracted because I'm just being distracted. But
That's a good point for sound as
Distracted
well.
by the sound.
yeah. But anyhow,
Sound guy.
that's the expectation for a media person. Like, even if the singers don't need, like, sometimes we don't necessarily have to have a sound person at practice, but that sound person needs to be there to know the song. So that's my expectation would be the sound person knowing the song that we're doing and what is specific about the song. So does the song have a guitar intro? If the song has a guitar intro, crank the guitar at the intro and bring it back down when that intro resolves.
100%.
If we have a moment where it's a very it's a core tom run in that, turn, even if it's Cody Milton on the drums, turn them up a little bit, to make sure that what is, I guess, being highlighted in the music
100%.
is coming out. But also as a guitarist, I play scared. I play really scared because I've been in places where I didn't understand how loud I was, and it was bad.
Yeah.
And then I've also been in services where I just completely reserved the entire time on volume, never heard a bit.
Nobody ever heard you.
And so I play afraid, and as a musician, and a lot of people believe this, that a musician should max out their volume and never touch it again. And the sound person should know, okay, this is that guitar part. Boom, bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay, the guitar part's over. Boom, bring it down. I don't hear bass enough in this song. Bring up bass. And there's a lot. Well, and I don't completely agree with that. The whole
I'll give my opinion here in a minute.
max out and never touch it.
I don't agree with that.
But
I'll give my opinion here in a minute.
but at the same time, the sound, to me, the sound tech should know a little bit about the song to know
100%.
what's coming up. And okay, this is supposed to be that guitar run that really makes that, because it can get awkward if you're not playing the lead note and all you hear is piano and drums, and there's a guitar riff that makes the transition between a verse and chorus or wherever, makes it not awkward. It could be awkward because the guitar is all the way down, or whatever instrument.
I'll give an example. So let's say you cut into a chorus and it's just drums and the drums are turned down.
Yeah.
It's very awkward. It's not bad. It's just awkward, can be a distraction. When the drums are turned real low, thank goodness they have actual acoustic noise that's being produced.
But
But
them subs won't be thumping.
right.
Yeah.
And that's like at that point, you see they're going out of the bridge, you know they're probably going to cut in the chorus. Bump the drums up
Fade 'em
and
up a
make
little bit.
make notes in practice. I know this is now turning into an instructional, but honestly, if
No,
I was
I mean,
running sound, I would
legit.
probably carry a little notepad with me. All right, this song, so and so
Yeah.
has a solo. Right now in practice, their level sounds good when they're set at 5 or 10. All right, in service,
Negative or positive?
when they get to this song, -10 sounds good on this
I'm sorry.
person's mic.
Yeah.
Well, and two,
I just looked at this. I wasn't even. I was like, I don't want to say 40, and there's not even a 40 on there. So
and two, keep in mind the way you set the house in practice.
yeah, that changes.
It changes when people get in there. When bodies get in there, you lose a bunch of
Bodies
sound.
absorb sound.
Yeah.
But I guess, so like singers.
Even then, that would be an adjustment to volume,
Yeah.
100%.
overall volume, because you've set it in practice to a good.
Yeah, that's true. It'd just
Equal
be a
out
master
level.
volume.
Yeah, it'd just be master volume.
That would just be.
But the sound tech is expected to run faders on singers. So Kara's leading, Kara should be expected to be heard. And how many times have you seen people pass microphones when they can't be heard? So
Or when the microphones just stop working in the middle of service.
true. But
More often than not, that.
the sound person, and so I guess we're talking more of our church, because I know other churches may be more or less right here, but so at our church, the sound person has always been trained for singers. I think it's changing now. This is of course historical. We had amps on the platform, so nothing was run through sound.
Yeah.
So there was no adjustment.
There
to be
was no
made.
adjustment, and that was fully on the musicians and what the audience was telling them. Turn it up a little. Turn it down.
This person over here
and
is saying,
literally
"Turn it up."
anybody
Yeah.
in the audience.
This person's
literally
saying, "Turn it
anybody,
down."
everybody had full say. Like them, okay, well I gotta believe them. I'm not in the audience; they are. But so like at our church, the sound tech is expected to fade singers in and out. Like that's a prerequisite of the job. That's number one. So to me, now that we've got all the instruments flowing through as well, it's a job responsibility of a sound tech to be able to understand levels and know what they're hearing. So like, I won't say this person's name, but there's somebody that's very close to me where every time I'm on guitar, I have anxiety, and I ask them after service, I was like, was I too loud or did you hear me? And they're like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what your instrument sounded like. I don't know. If I did hear you, I have no idea. If I didn't hear you, I have no idea. They don't think about it. They're not, I guess, focused on the music, which I guess is a good thing. But what was so anyhow, to me a prerequisite would be
Lost his train of thought.
for them to know what the guitar sounds like, what the bass sounds like, what aux keys, because that's a new thing we have. And I understand putting someone up in a position for training, whether they're a new bass player, a drummer, guitar player, piano, aux keys, whatever. we're opening the door for someone to have training, but also, it's kind of pointless to have someone up there without them being in the mix. And I know, like for us, if we have piano and drums, we can make it through a service. If we lose guitar, we lose bass, we lose aux keys, we lose organ, we can make it through a service with piano and drums. And if we are out musicians, those are the two things that are prioritized. So like, obviously we're not focusing on having aux keys louder than piano, and we're not focusing on bass being louder than drums or something like that. But at the same time, what's the point in someone being on the instrument if it's not doing what the instrument, because bass adds to a song, guitar adds, aux keys adds to a song, organ does too. And so, I guess that's the way I think is, what's the point of someone being up there if it's not added into the mix in the appropriate level, that it's supposed to be, it's intended to be.
Yeah.
And that to me is,
And if you're
expectation.
training, I don't expect you to do all that. But let's say you're in training or you've just started doing sound or whatever. This is something you could work to of, okay, this would improve sound quality, to fade in, to be able to know this song well enough. I know they're fixing to cut to drums only, or be ready to where if it's just it's one of those services where the Holy Ghost takes over and it's music the whole service, be ready to jump to the drums if they do cut all the music.
Yeah.
Raise the drums a little bit and then come back down, or guitar, come back down. So I think that pretty much sums up what musicians expect from the sound person. Now,
So I have a couple points on this
Give it
before,
to
okay,
us.
go ahead.
before
Sorry.
I start tearing y'all to
Sorry.
shreds.
Okay, go ahead.
So it's one thing that I've tried to push more with our sound people. First of all of our sound people at church do an awesome job.
They do.
They do. They're at practice in general, outside of emergencies, they're at practice on time. They're doing their job. Like I said, outside of crazy stuff that happens, like half the piano in the in-ears cutting out like that one night, and what is going on? But one thing I've tried to train more now is you do have control of your instruments, right? So oftentimes Caleb will intro the song. And so I try to make sure, hey, on this song, I catch the sound person after practice, make sure the guitar is cranked on that intro, because otherwise it just sounds like we're chording it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he's not doing that intro part, I'm just chording, because I'm not
sounds
gonna,
awkward. Just
right. Yeah. If I'm just doing this on that song, Limitless, all I'm doing is that. So that sounds really awkward if the guitar is not cranked on that part. So that's one thing I'm trying to push more. And so as a sound person, know the song.
And two, as musicians, but when you got in-ears in, you may seem like you're really loud because, all of us have ourselves turned up the
Yeah.
loudest.
Yeah.
And so that's hard. That's hard for me. I'll be playing, doing an intro or whatever, and think I'm at a good volume because I'm really loud in my in-ears, but really out in the house, I'm not that loud.
Well,
And that's where to me, and plus doing an intro, you're nervous anyway. Like, I hope I don't mess this up or whatever. As the sound person, which 9 times out of 10 I do, but that's where the sound person comes in and be like, okay, he don't have his volume where he was at practice. Let me turn him up even more.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Like,
I see him playing, but I don't hear him playing.
Yeah, I know this is where I had him set at in practice, but I don't hear him, so I'm going to turn him up even more.
Yeah.
Well, the question was asked, should it be taken as serious as a musician preparing for a service, as the minister preparing his message, whatever? Yes, 100%. Your sound person should be listening to every single one of them songs, know the intros, know who's... Now, granted, if you have a 3-piece band that's piano, bass, and drums, Caleb, no guitar solo for you in that setup, right? So, obviously, you then have to swap your mindset for that, but know the songs 100%, because if we're going to get close to it, as a sound person, you need to know what your moves should be. I described it at camp as each musician has their instrument. This is your instrument.
Yeah.
The difference is your instrument controls all the other instruments. And if you don't play it well, it's distracting.
Yeah.
So, yes, practice your instrument. Practice, rehearse the songs in your head, know what's coming next, so that way you can prepare for it. So, and what you said there, listening is key. During practice, you said that open communication, that should be there, right? In my opinion, your sound person should be there ahead of everyone else. So that way, practice time hits, everything's good to go. They can start adjusting from there once practice starts, right? We were at Silsby one year for homecoming, and we were there early enough. They were still finishing up practice. We're just sitting there listening. One thing that really caught my attention is they were finishing up practice, and Brother David Jennings asked every single one of the singers, y'all good? Y'all good? Do you need anything? He looks up at the sound booth and says, are you good? Do you need anything from us? He checked all the boxes before they closed practice, right? So he made sure everybody, no questions were left unanswered. Everybody was good to go. So that's my spiel on sound people.
And don't be timid as a sound person.
That's what I was about to say. You're a part of the.
Yeah, 100%.
You're just as much
You're a part of the team.
If you hear something off, bring it up.
Yeah.
Cody, you're really hammering on that hi-hat tonight. Can you
close it?
back that off?
And then
just a
you
little
say
bit?
no.
And then I say, yeah, and then I don't.
And then we take the pacifier away.
And then we take the hi-hat away.
We take the crayons away.
Crayons.
I'm
Crayons.
saying crayons every time now.
Oh, wait. I was going to give my input on that. So, sound people. Should musicians, this is before I get into the other stuff, should musicians crank their volume all the way and leave it alone? Or should they leave room to work with? I know y'all's opinion.
I crank my
'Cause you gave
volume
it.
all the way up and leave it alone.
I know you do. Here's my opinion as a sound person. No. Give yourself room to work with.
Yeah.
I asked you at practice the other night, were you at max volume just then? And you said, no, I'm leaving myself room for doing the intro. I said, good, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And sound people, if that offends you, I'm sorry.
So leaving yourself room, what does that
Yes.
mean?
So
So
like go
3/4
80%.
volume.
Okay.
Give yourself room. If Caleb's at 3/4 volume playing power chords, he has that extra volume to bump whenever he does the intro.
Yeah.
So it's less work for the sound person. Obviously, there may be more that needs to be done, but you're not totally relying on the sound person to control every aspect of it. Plus, we've all been in services where it gets going. You want some extra oomph to
Okay.
work with.
I
Or
got
the
you.
sound person starts shouting, puts the iPad down.
Exactly.
I
yes.
guess I guess there should be a ground zero though for okay, you're gonna set it to 3/4 volume. Like that helix
Agreed.
shows
Yeah.
you when
It
you're at
shouldn't be just randomly set every
172.
practice. Yes.
Yeah.
So it should be set at 75.
So
or
yeah.
at 62.
But it's also
run-
a feel thing though, because if everybody gets quiet and you're still just
You need to
might
bring that
you might
volume
run
down.
20%.
Yeah. Yeah.
on that,
100%.
You know?
Well, as a sound person, I don't want you running your piano full volume while they're introing ministry. I don't want to have to turn you down. Turn yourself down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
one less thing I don't have to, because I'm focusing on making sure the preacher's loud enough.
Yeah.
If you control your piano, that's us working together, in my opinion, as opposed to, okay, let me do this, then I can focus on this.
Yeah.
So this is just a question from observing. It has nothing to do with the topic, but it does have to do with sound. I've noticed that you have the sound people going to different areas in the sanctuary
100%.
and checking sound.
Yes.
So in my mind, they stand front and center or center of the sanctuary. The speakers, monitors, whatever they're called, are angled at them. They're getting full blast volume right there.
Yep.
And they set it. Then they walk to the back corner and they're getting no volume from this one and all volume from this one. Do they adjust there? Because in my mind, that would mess it up. That would mess up what you just did at front and center.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So
If you
great.
turn anything up, it's going to blow front and center away.
So great question. And the answer is
It's just something I've seen. I'm like, is that
I think
not
it's just finding a balance, right?
counterintuitive to do that?
You want it
What
to
he
be
said.
even, so that no matter where you're at in the sanctuary, you're getting the same experience.
Is that achievable though?
With our new system, I think, right?
Yeah, not with the old one.
Yeah, not with the old one.
Cody'd stand in front of it, and his face would absorb all the sound, and everybody in the back, I can't hear it.
In the bottom
and
two
then Cody's
speakers.
After
eardrums are
service,
blown.
I couldn't hear.
So, just out of this one ear.
Yeah.
But so to answer your question, no
And
matter how
this
good,
may be a pointer for sound guys.
yeah,
I mean,
100%.
this is a
So to give a little extra context to the people that are listening, the way our system is set up, it's 100% ran, I guess you would say remotely.
Mobile.
Nobody is sitting behind a desk.
Which I love, by the way.
I prefer that. I used to not, but I prefer that. Why? For one, I'm not stuck in a sound booth. If
You can actually be involved in service.
I told Josh, he was running sound the other night, I told him, if you feel the need to go pray for somebody, throw that thing down.
Yeah.
People aren't going to remember how good the sound was. People will remember a move of God.
Yeah.
right.
So
And
at
he
the end of the
done
day,
that.
that's your priority. And he did. So I was
Yeah.
proud of him. But it's about finding the best of both worlds. No matter how good your speakers are, nothing is ever the same 100% everywhere in the sanctuary, right? So ideally, my studio set up here. You mix both your speakers, same distance from your ears, you can hear both of them, right? In the real world, it doesn't work like that, right? Nobody is dead center. In fact, our center aisle, nobody's standing in it, right?
Yeah.
So nobody's in that perfect listening condition. So what does it sound like very front, right in front of the pulpit? What does it sound like in this back corner? What does it sound like over here? It's going to sound different in all those areas to a certain extent, right? So if the drums, let's not use drums, because they're acoustic, so it's a little it's a little bit sticky. So if the piano is cranking on the front row, but at the back you can't hear it that well, you probably shouldn't turn it up, right? Because it's cranking on the front row. It's about finding the balance of all of that, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
You're never going to get 100%.
I've just always questioned that. I was like, that seems so counterintuitive. I'm sure I knew there was a reason behind it. I just wanted to know what that was and bring it out so that if another church has that capability,
100%.
here's a good
For all the
practice.
sound people, if you have a digital system and you can mix from an iPad, do it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be, not that I'm against sound
Also,
booths,
you
but
get the house noise.
100%.
In a
Yeah.
sound booth, you're getting
Well,
the sound booth.
You're in a
some of
box.
them, like the open ones, some churches will
Right.
have like the
that
open
are
one.
centered.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably not as bad, but ours is bad for sound.
Or, yeah, you can't mix
you
from
can't.
there.
Yeah, you would have to stick your head out.
Well, if
Done it
you're
Well,
before.
mixing,
even then, you're going to be hearing to the right.
Yeah.
You know,
it's,
you're going to be.
you can't, with the air going, no.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
that air
That
filter
air
right
return.
there.
Horrible. But if I'm mixing for the saints that are in the sanctuary, I want to mix from where they're listening at.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I encourage our sound people, be up there where people are worshiping, because that's where a lot of that's the majority of your people are up there. You should be up there too. What does it sound like?
Yep.
So that's the answer to that question.
All right. Now, Rayless.
So, no, I'm actually not going to. But from a sound person's perspective, what do I expect from a musician? I already mentioned the sound person, and y'all can tag in on this because, y'all know about sound. Y'all aren't totally ignorant of it. But sound person, I show up early for practice. Everything's turned on. The musicians, obviously, I've already dedicated a little bit more of my time to get there early in an ideal situation. I would want the musicians there ahead of practice with their stuff plugged up, ready to go. So that way, I'm a prime example. I use my computer. I plug in the MIDI cable. I make sure everything's plugged in my interface. It takes me a few minutes to get that going, not as long as it used to. But doing that, it's going to be a problem if I show up right at practice time and then have to take 5 more minutes, right?
And then there's a sound problem, so now the sound guy has to go fix
Exactly, which was leading to my next point.
it. Oh, my bad. Mute me.
But no, that's exactly that's the point though. If a musician shows up early, gets their stuff plugged in, you now have 2 or 3, 5 minutes, 10 minutes before practice starts. If there's an issue, y'all can have that conversation to resolve that issue before everybody picks up the mics and starts going at it, right?
Let's
So-
talk common issues. There's a squeal in the guitar channel,
There's never a squeal. It's a buzz.
a buzz, whatever.
Tell him to take his distortion pedal off.
You can.
I only turn that on when we're in the middle of a song.
I'm sorry.
You can pick up on that before everybody gets.
Yes,
you know, before
100%.
you've got 8 microphones, 12 instruments, and
Well-
you're like, "Where's that coming from?"
And I think, I'm not a sound person, but speaking from a sound person's perspective, if I was running sound, I would feel a whole lot more comfortable. And we don't do this at our church, and we probably should do a
Sound check.
musician's sound check before every practice.
Yeah. In
Like
an
play
ideal
through
world.
play through one of the songs.
We actually we need one song that we play. Whoever's on the instruments,
Yes,
they play.
and it rotates around if we're doing like obviously the bass would never have a solo, but we do it almost
If
like
Caleb's
that
playing it.
overplaying. Yeah, almost like that overplaying
Lead
video
bass?
where we play a song and it when this moment focuses on piano.
Yeah.
So like you know what they're set at if they're leading or if they're back in the mix. Same with the guitar, if they're introing or if they're back in the mix. If drums need to be back in the
It
mix.
could be something we make up to play.
So like with
and
fonts.
then just have it written out for, but that is your ground zero
Yeah.
for the music side of it. So you get everything sounding good there. You're set. You're familiar with each person's volume. Practice can start.
100%.
We need to come up with that.
Like so fonts. I forgot exactly. It was something like the quick brown fox jumps over the fence. But there's something else there because it gets every single letter in that sentence. And so when you're looking at a font, you can see every single letter.
I thought it was the lazy
Fine.
dog.
Lazy.
I thought you
Lazy.
said fawns.
I think it's lazy brown fox. But then it's got to have a
No,
the
it's
lazy quickly
anyway.
jumps over the fence.
It's
Something
the
like
quick
that.
brown fox something, but I don't remember what it jumps over the log or something like that. Yeah.
It's got to have a Z there. So
I think it's a lazy dog or something like that.
Anywho, before we
Could
go
they not
too
just
far
do
with
A,
this,
B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L,
Yeah,
M, N,
but
P, Q,
come
R,
on,
S, T, U, V,
Elemental.
W, X, Y, and Z?
I think that would be a good
Elemental.
idea.
You know how they're doing it nowadays, don't you?
Elementary school.
LMNOPQRSTU. That's actually a thing.
So the next generation will be saying OPQ.
There are no elementos now.
Oh, man.
Elemento.
That's what's wrong. Trump, bring back Elemento.
So
That's why they call it elementary school.
I think that's a great idea. Something we should think about implementing. But I mean, if we're still dealing with an issue with Caleb's Helix, I'm not saying we do.
Highly likely.
I'm not saying we do, but he used that as an example,
Yeah.
right? If
That's a common problem.
yeah, if we're dealing with that problem and practice starts, your singers
players.
are standing there like, are y'all done?
We're wasting
right?
their time.
Exactly. Well, we're wasting everybody's time at that point. So that's one expectation is if I'm getting there early, I'm making sure everything's turned on. Your singers, not so much, right? They come in, turn a mic on, right? But they should be practicing their vocal warm-ups. They should know the song. They shouldn't have to stare at the screens. But there's less
30
stuff for them to
footsie
set
by
up,
the
right?
post.
There's less stuff for them to set up. So that's one expectation. Two, I would like for, as a sound person, musicians to understand more of the processing side of what sound looks like. So Caleb and Jesse will probably know more of what I'm talking about. But if your piano is too boomy and I want you to take some lows out of it, I would rather you do that from the piano than me do it at the board. Why?
Right.
Because if another piano player comes up there, uses a different patch, different sound, it may not be boomy. And if I've taken it out at the board, your next patch sounds thin, right?
Well, and you're a prime example because you're the only one that uses
The MIDI.
the MIDI.
yeah, 100%.
So
But he
anybody else that
also-
gets up there, if it's adjusted at the board
Mm-hmm.
for all of that, the next piano player gets up there not using MIDI, they're just using the regular piano. It's going to sound way off.
Yep.
Because we've adjusted at the board.
I've purposely done that at church. I've set the piano EQ flat. There's nothing on it. And any adjustments that need to be made to the Roland, I've adjusted inside the piano itself.
Yeah.
So that way I don't have to, every time I play, turn the EQ off on the board and worry about that. It's already done, right?
Back to the other side of this. Speak up as a sound guy.
Yeah.
or girl. Say, hey, that piano's really bassy. I've noticed everybody loves to tell you, including myself, if they like the piano sound or not. But the sound guy ultimately
Including
should be,
that random person that came in.
ultimately that should be the sound guy.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to address something that's going to hinder the atmosphere of worship.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the highs are ear piercing on this patch,
Yeah.
on this whatever it's called. It's
patch.
ear
It's
piercing.
patched. You got it right.
You can't hear it
The drummer got it
because
right.
you're listening through headphones.
Yeah.
They're listening through
And we got it.
Bose with it blasting.
Yeah.
It sounds good in our ears, but out there it sounds ear piercing.
It's different. Yeah.
So, as the sound person, don't be afraid to say, "Hey, can you?" If we're gonna live by that rule of it's adjusted at the instrument, sound person has to speak up and say something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not in a condescending way. Just be, "Hey, bring the lows down on the piano."
And as a musician, don't get offended when they say,
Right.
Yeah.
"Hey, turn that down." Like what?
Right.
I don't sound good. You don't.
There-
You don't like the way I
exactly.
play. Like
It goes back to that communication. That should be, nobody should get, the sound guy shouldn't get offended if you ask him to adjust something that he doesn't like the look of it because you can mix with your eyes, apparently. That's a common thing.
Yes.
So similarly, if the sound guy hears something off, the musician shouldn't get offended. I don't want to adjust this.
Yeah.
No, we're
Come on,
we're both
we're a team.
contributing. Yeah,
This isn't a whatever it's called where they tear each other down.
yeah. Now
A roast session.
That's not a hard and fast rule. Like every adjustment that needs to be made should be made at the instrument. But in general,
I agree.
because there's so many different instruments that rotate in and out, I guess you would say, or different patches, different sounds. If I make an adjustment at the board, it's universal.
No guitar players playing the same guitar.
Exactly.
that's what I was
There
going to
you
say.
go.
Guitar is a
100%.
huge one.
Yeah.
Every guitar sounds different.
Yeah.
100%.
Good thing is our bass and drums are pretty solid.
Yeah.
Well, no, because we got two other bass players.
I was going to say, and they both
Bring-
bring their
Well,
own basses.
and
Different
drums.
sounding basses.
I guess three main drummers, whenever you get a chance, would be you, Brother
Don't
Drew,
count me.
and
Count
you.
yourself.
Well,
I don't know. I guess we do probably
drums-
play.
We probably played about
The
as
same
much as each
amount.
other. Yeah.
I think
You're
the
just on
drums.
a definitely different level.
I think the drums is going to be volume
Yeah.
changes.
Not sound based, but volume. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So
just
after
because
this,
I'm a really loud drum
after
player.
this episode, you're going to be more
Oh yeah,
cognizant of that hi-hat.
yeah. I ain't even gonna touch the high. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna remove it from the drum set.
No, we can't take your pacifier away. But I think those would be my two main high points, making sure that communication is open, getting there early for practice. And I would like, and I mean, it could be something that maybe your church brings in an audio professional and does some kind of training.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, oh, well, only the sound people need to be there for that. No, your musicians
Yes.
should know this stuff. If I want extra compression on your piano, if I can tell you to do it,
Yeah.
that's better. So that way, when you swap piano sounds, it's not the same issue.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
In my brief time over the sound, I've got a little bit of sound tech in there that I could also say to the musicians. Would be one, nothing bothered me more, and actually, I think it bothers me so bad because I seen it bother pastor so bad, is when people aren't prepared ahead in time. And sound and service in general, we allow God to move when God wants to move, but at the same time we plan everything. You know, that's why we have practices. That's why we have planning. That's why we, make sure I's dotted, T's crossed, whatever. But when somebody comes 30 minutes and I'm walking to the prayer room and somebody comes to me, hey, we got a video we're going to show. Where do we need to send that video? And
How can we make sure it's ran through
how
the
can
system?
we make sure it's ran through the system? Like, okay, you do understand that I've got to go to prayer right now because I'm supposed to be there. And I'm on an instrument this service. And now you want me to make sure that computer's ran through the soundboard, and you can send me your video through email, and I can download it and put it in the computer to play.
And hopefully
Within-
that video won't sound terrible
Yeah.
because the sound man didn't have a chance to.
Or won't be in some
Adjust it.
weird format that you can't
Yeah.
play it in.
So for me, it would be preparation. Like if you've got something like that, something like that could be so far ahead of time. But also, I think of myself also, I guess pointing finger at me as a musician, when I come and I bring my pedal, if I'm playing Caleb's pedal, that's a whole nother thing. But when I bring my pedal, I should probably come early, set it up, and tell whoever's running sound, hey, that Helix is probably pushing a little bit more than mine. So just be cognizant. I might even have mine set hotter. I might be louder than the Helix is set. Or it might be a little odd.
Yeah, it's simply telling them, keeping that communication open, telling them that's something to watch out for.
I've made a change.
Yep.
Yeah. Just
be
want to
ready.
give you a heads up. What would you want me to do? I just plugged in my pedal. Is there something you want me to run through? I guess the preparation side of it, don't do things last minute. And, I've done a lot of things last minute. I've brought my pedal at 4:29, plugged it in, got everything plugged in right at 4:30. Okay, let's play, without ever telling the sound person, hey, that's a different guitar pedal. So I know this isn't necessarily everybody's
That's why
cup
he
of tea
was louder
knowledge.
that night, right?
Yeah. But I run right now a 3 single coil guitar. He runs a double humbucker guitar. Unless I'm playing his Helix, I'm playing a Head Rush
Cody, do you know what
MX5.
they're talking about?
Well, needless to say, my setup,
Give me the crayons.
my setup's usually going to be a lot quieter and a lot less gain than his would be running. And, that's something to know. I'm going to try to control as much as I can on my side, like we talked about. But at the same time, you should probably at least have a heads up.
Yeah.
So that would be from my experience as a sound tech, 2 musicians, singers. And really, this is for anybody watching because everybody's going to have a video.
Yeah.
And tell the media director too, because I hear that one. But just thinking about, it's not as simple. Just I can just send it to you in a text message and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Like, have some forethought.
Right. Talking about people sending videos, your average person sitting in the audience doesn't know what all goes
What
in
goes into it? Yeah.
to the technology that makes it work. I set up at Camp 1 and had to, for lack of better terms, jerry rig some stuff to make it work, right? So if somebody's asking, hey, can you give me more of this? No, not really, because it's tied in with these channels that are also doing the same thing. And so it's not always possible without preparation.
I ask you all the time, and you're like, no, it's not set up to do that. I'm like,
Right.
okay. I'll be like, can you do this? No, it's not set up. Okay. Because I don't know.
But before this podcast, did I not say I'm working on making that an option?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go. There's the communication.
Another thing, sound tech to across the board, singers, musicians, is be the same in practice as you are in service. So, like, say you got your overall volume on your Helix set to 50% and your pedal set to 50% in practice. Okay, now here comes service, and you set your overall volume to 90% and your pedal to 90%. And, now they're fighting.
Now they're scrambling.
Yeah, they're like, I know I just set this. Or, maybe the singer wants to be overpowered. So, like, in practice, they're like this right here, and then service, or vice versa. In practice, it is, and in service.
That's usually the case.
Yeah,
Practice are like
usually
this.
it's
and
more
then
of the
service.
singer.
Yep.
But
So especially to singers, sing full volume in practice. Don't whisper in
So,
practice.
don't give any room. Musicians, you give room. Singers don't give room.
Give us sound guy to singers because we've got singers listening.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
there you go.
Because
All right.
I know that is even more diverse than instruments
That's
are.
fair.
It's
I have
usually more of an issue because we have a general knowledge of sound. probably at least 85% of singers have no idea about anything
That's
about
fair.
sound.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a bigger disconnect between sound and singers.
That's where a lot of the tension.
Why can't I have more monitors?
Well, more meat, right? Okay. So I'll try to make it quick because I know we're running out of time. We're knocking on over an hour now. But so to our singers who are listening, hopefully you're listening, all 30 of you. As a sound person, what he just said would be my biggest point is come to start practice prepared. If you don't know your solo, you're only singing half the words. I can't get an appropriate level during practice. So during service, yeah, you might be quiet. I don't know because I didn't get an accurate level of what
Reading.
it should be. Yeah. Another one that's a pet peeve of mine is singers hold your mic like this. Do not hold it out here and then at service time do this and expect everything to be okay. Stuff could start squealing. So be the
Expecting the sound to go there.
what you just said. Be the same in practice as in the actual service, right? And I understand vocal cords need to warm up. I fully, completely understand that. But do not
for practice.
do not whisper during practice with the mic out here, and then all of a sudden service you're coming out full volume, right? So, and I think that could come to, you're a singer. I think that could come to being prepared for practice. If you know your lyrics, you know your part, you're going to come into practice more confident. Therefore, you're going to sing at an appropriate level,
Right.
as opposed to not really knowing my part. So I'm just going to kind of stay out of the mix, right?
Yeah.
So, couple major points there.
I got one thing to add on the communication side of things, and we've all talked about this before, and I'm sure it's in the works at some point. But we saw this at Stillsby Church, is where I'm getting the idea from. But the sound guy having an in-ear mix, being able, Talkback, being able to use Talkback.
Yeah.
Because musicians especially, we had it happen here a while back where it got time for service to start and the piano
Was not.
was muted.
Only coming through one ear, right?
No,
Or
was it
muted?
muted?
It was muted.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it was muted.
And we were like freaking out
Because we were practicing something, or it was muted in the house.
Yeah,
but
we
it was
could still
coming
hear it
through
in our
the
ears.
in-ears.
Yep.
And like in those instances, and the person running sound, they were shaking hands with somebody. Like it wasn't that they were just intentionally not unmuting, but we could have been like, "Hey, the piano's muted." Oh,
Yeah.
And they would be able to hear
instead
that.
of us making a noticeable scene of freaking out, we're over here.
On stage
Yeah.
Yeah. So
while they're doing
you have
focus prayer.
if you have that capability, do it, because
You know what?
it would be useful.
You know what would be perfect for a sound guy or gal? What God is doing? Those bone conduction headphones, but not running audio, like not running the mix, only the talkback. So they're not getting any singers or musicians.
I don't think we can
Would
do
they
that.
be able to hear it good enough, though?
I thought you were talking
should
about the
be able to.
headset that the old men wear when they mow their yard.
No.
With the microphone. With
No.
this coming
Well,
down
the
the side of their
trick
face.
is you've still got to be able to hear everything
the
clearly
live.
and mix it.
So the bone conduction would only, because like, have you ever wore those bone conduction? So you can hear everything still, but you've got that. So all they would get is talkback. They would
Yeah.
get whatever the talkback channel is, but not musicians
I
and
think we could
singers. So they get the
experiment
live
with that.
mix.
Can you do that?
Something
Like, can you
not-
transmit
I
over
don't think you
Bluetooth?
can.
Bluetooth transmitter.
Oh,
That, or they do make
And it
wired
wouldn't have to
bone
be-
conduction headphones too. Make wired ones.
I think you may have given me a good idea.
That would just be
Coming
handy
soon.
because even the sound
To a
bars could
church
be
near
like, guitar, bring the lows, take the lows out.
Yeah, if we put
Guitar,
a,
we got.
Yeah.
Or another thing, a lot of times in the middle of a song, if a service is cranking and we've been doing the same song for an hour,
Yeah.
you may say, "All right, Caleb, you're coming. It's fixing to be you. You're fixing to
That's not a bad
do solo.
idea.
Take it.
Sound
Yeah.
person can hear that. And be
And
like, all
you-
right, guitar's fixing need to be
Yeah.
turned up a
You
little
do
bit
that
louder.
often. You say, "All right, play."
Yeah.
You know, if
Well, I don't want to play on top of y'all.
yeah,
I'd rather one of y'all.
Well,
do
I mean,
picking,
they
I
would
guess,
hear
and then
that.
I would rather chord.
You wouldn't have to change as much. You wouldn't have to do a whole lot. They would understand, okay, this wasn't how they did it in practice because they didn't sing it this long in practice.
Mm-hmm.
So we went away from the original structure of that song. Now we know, or chorus, cut, just drums.
yeah.
They can hear that. All right, drums need to come up when they get to the end of this bridge.
That's a great idea.
Or hey, it's going to verse, intro. Anything
If
like
they
that.
hear intro, guitar has the spot.
Yeah.
It's-
Verse 1.
Well,
that soloist needs to come up.
it would help because they're not relying just on memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like there was a instance where in my in-ears, I was playing guitar one time and my in-ears blaring, absolutely blaring my guitar. And afterwards, sound person came up and said, "I had nothing of you." And he said, "I was pushing you as much as I could push you and there was nothing coming out." And, I went the whole service thinking that I was rocking everybody out. Like I'm overbearing.
Blowing it out of the water.
Because that's all I could hear. But really, there was nothing at all in the house. And if they had a talk back too, that could say, "All right, Jesse, I don't know what's going on, but I have no
I
volume.
need some more volume.
Yeah, figuring out what you can give me or whatever. Maybe the piano is just so turned down low that they can't bring it up anymore without causing some type of jeopardizing, the mix or whatever. And hey, I need you to physically turn aux keys. Maybe it's someone that's not confident. Aux keys. You're running 0 volume. I need you to give me some.
Don't be afraid of it.
your bar is not moving at all.
So, closing arguments.
Yeah.
My closing statement is three
Maybe
things.
closing tips is.
Closing tips. Yeah. So, as a sound person, have thick skin.
Yep.
But at the same time, respectful and listen to what everybody's trying to say. And
Yeah. Despite having.
you can only do so much, but at least act like you're listening.
Yeah.
But don't wear your heart on your shoulder or whatever that's saying, your feelings, whatever. Don't be easily offended because it's not an attack on you. This is a real problem that they're having.
Yeah.
For instance, here's my metaphor of the podcast.
Caleb had a good one. You're going to have to
When
go hard.
when you have a child and that child breaks a Happy Meal McDonald's toy and it is the end of the world, you're thinking that's a McDonald's toy. They're a dime a dozen. But to them, that was the greatest thing in the world that just shattered. So as a
I think you
singer,
topped your metaphor.
as a singer and as a
I
musician,
disagree. Mine was biblical.
I gotta agree with Caleb.
As
Only
a
because it was
singer-
biblical.
as a singer and a musician, your instrument is your contribution and you want it to sound the absolute best it can sound. So sometimes it can come across as quick and there's no offense intended, but it's taken.
Yeah.
So as a sound person, just take it. Don't be offended. It's not an attack on your character. Same thing as a musician
Yes.
when it's coming from a sound person. It's not an attack on you. It's not an attack on your ability. None of that. Work together as a team. The very last point I'm going to make, as a sound person, you are the one running the sound in that room. If there's 75 people in that room, there's 75 different expectations. Unless someone in authority, pastor, other ministers, other individuals that have authority in the church and stuff. Unless
you know
they're-
who those people are in your church too.
Unless they're coming to you and saying, hey, you need to back this off or change this. This is where the confidence comes in. You're relying on your ability. So what sounds good to you is what's going to sound good that night. You're in control of that. Don't use that as a way to get revenge on someone. They're doing a guitar solo and you pull it all the way down. That's not the place.
I wouldn't blame you.
That's not the place for that. It's not the time. It is just as important as any other involvement in leadership of the service leadership. But understand there's 75 different expectations, 75 different ways that you should be doing your job. So don't take offense. Don't get discouraged.
75 different ways you could be doing your job.
You could be doing your job. Don't get discouraged when people's like, oh, this sounds bad, blah, blah, blah. You have your expectation. That's all you can do. Have the ability to meet your own expectation with the equipment you have.
Yeah.
So,
And your
that's
expectation was set when you were trained. Like, it's not just something you're pulling out of thin air.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want the piano to be 3 times louder than anything else.
Right.
Like, that's going to sound terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
If the piano's your favorite instrument, that
I'm
does not
offended.
mean it should be.
I'm offended.
I'm halfway offended too.
That
I
does
kind of
not
agree, but I'm kind of offended.
you're 1/3 offended or 1/4 offended.
That does not mean the piano. If it's your favorite instrument, it should not be the loudest just because you like hearing the piano. There should be an even. I tend to like the sound bass, not the bass, but the sound bass a little bit louder than everything else because I feel like that kind of puts you in the room.
Yeah.
100%.
You feel bass.
Yeah, but if I was running sound, the subs would be higher than the speakers. It's
touching
Caleb
his
rubbing the
mic.
mic on his.
Kind of sounded a little
No,
creepy.
I was like, what
I didn't
is
even hear
that?
it. I just twisted this little
I was
phone
like,
piece.
did my
Look,
kid wake up and scream at
I
me?
think y'all heard it. It almost sounded like, so I was like,
So my closing thoughts to each of our 3 parties that we've talked about, sound tech, musician, singer. Sound tech, I'm going to say this. Okay. Overall, communication is the key. Communication is the key. You listen, you talk, there should be no, well, I can't really bring this up. There should be no, well, I'm not going to listen to that. No, just cancel all that. Communication is 100% for everyone on board. Sound person, I agree 100% with what you said. You mix according to how you were trained and what your leadership says. But sound person, realize you don't know it all. That person playing that instrument probably knows that instrument better than you. So if they recommend something for it, listen to them. An epidemic I see with sound people is they think they know it all. They know just enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be
Effective.
useful. So, sound person, you don't know it all. If someone gives you some advice that actually uses that instrument, they're a singer, take it, right? Not all of it will be 100% something you can accept, right? But take it, listen to it, consider it. Musician, I don't know if I have something for the musician right away.
just be prepared.
Be prepared, communicate with the sound person, and singers, be prepared. Give me an appropriate level during practice.
So, last closing argument, and if anybody's still on, the 4th aspect.
Please, nobody get offended.
So you mentioned singers, musicians, sound. The 4th aspect,
Media. No.
well, audience. We understand none of us are professionals, but we are doing the best we can.
Yeah.
And we want you to have the best experience that you can. Sometimes you're just going to have to work with us as we work to try to get through to the problem. That's the 4th. That would be my expectation, because I know if we brought an audience member, they would have expectations for everybody. I wish it wasn't this or that. I understand, but as one of those 3, a singer, I'm not a singer, but being a singer, a musician, or a sound guy, I think they could say, just have a good time.
I thought you were fixing to bring up preachers because that's a whole nother
Monitor.
stage.
We need monitor. Blast us out the room. Sorry.
So, sound person.
I should have.
To be
Okay.
able to do that, crank them in the monitor to the point where they squeal, and then EQ out the frequencies that are squealing and then crank it some more. You'll be okay.
I know preachers that have said the way they remedy it is they'll completely pull out of the microphone, and they say the sound people are forced to turn me up, and then I get it. And they said they'll do that the entire.
So they work the mic in order to make the sound person turn them up.
Yeah.
Person communicate with.
I just go
the
straight to the house
preacher
speakers, and I
and
stand
do
right
what
in
they-
front of a house
Please
speaker.
do what they
Monitors.
ask.
Preacher, we're on to your games. Good luck.
My bad, bro. I sold out.
Caleb, closing arguments?
I think I've about covered them all. I don't.
Crank Caleb during the intro.
No.
Yes, no. Seriously, if there's a guitar intro, crank it.
If nothing else, so we could hear the mess up
Yes.
online after the season.
So that I can go back.
and
I
find
should,
it.
I
and
should be
we can
able
post
to
it.
post that.
Oh, the mistake
this weekend.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. I think we about covered it. Rube the Sound Guy 02 $. We hope that we have effectively answered your question, and we thank you for contributing it. Anyone that's listening, if you made it this far, please comment a question. We'll be more than happy to talk about it, bring it up.
We may not know everything about the question, but we
100%.
will give it the best shot we got.
And I'm sorry we didn't cover all the questions. We got so bombarded with so many questions.
With this
They
one
had to
question.
pick
So much
one.
I will say it was refreshing to get a question in.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid
100%.
to send a question in.
There are no
you only
dumb
got
questions.
Comments.
We got like
most
a
of the
whole
people.
box of fan mail we're still going.
Oh,
through.
really?
Oh, wait, there was that one
Yeah,
comment.
last week
from-
was huge for me.
Guitarists
My
get all
Instagram
the
followers.
So
See, if y'all were guitarists,
most of the people listening to this have my phone number and most of our phone numbers. Text us if you
Yeah.
don't want it to be on YouTube and
100%.
everybody be able
We
to see
will
who you are
give
and
you
your
a
question.
funny name as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
With that, as Pastor Lambert always says, may you pour out before the Lord with all that you do, your music, your practice, yourself, your worship. And we pray that you have an amazing service on
Sunday morning.
Or in
And-
our
and
case,
night.
Youth
Sunday.
on Fire this coming weekend.
Big episode next week, right?
Yeah.
I think
oh,
so.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Big episode coming up.
Coming soon.
So
ready.
subscribe, like, hit the notification bell. Be on.
If you want to.
Thank y'all for joining us.
We out.